The Q&A, huh?
I did.
You did? Okay.
And
Here we can start.
you tell me, you give me the go?
I think we can start.
Okay, cool. Just checking. Yes. Hello, everyone. So I can see more people entering the room. And I will ask everyone to stay muted still.
I think Randy is with his mic on, just to make sure that.
Yeah, that's perfect. Randy is here and the mic is working. Perfect. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being present this morning, and I'm glad to be with you again this week, following last week's first webinar. So we will keep on dealing with the changes that are driving the paratransit sector today, with an in-depth exploration of two cities, Lagos and Kumasi, which have been implementing some reforms in the paratransit sector. Before we dive into this fascinating topic, I would just like to remind you some housekeeping rules. And first, I'd like to start by recalling that this training is developed by Mobilize Your City with the support of several donors, and it has been created in collaboration with Kodatu. If you would be interested, you can have access to the decks of the presentation by asking directly the Mobilize Your City team on the website and through the QR code. This series of webinar is consists in presentation from several speakers. You will be given access to them during Q&A session, but for now, I will ask you to keep muted by switching off your mic and your cameras. The session is recorded. So if you don't want to be on the camera, it's important. If you don't want to be on the screen yet, if it's important to keep your camera off. And during the Q&A moment, then you will be asked to switch on your camera and your mic if you want to speak. And you are also free to access the Q&A section with the chat all along the presentation, and your questions will be shared with us. Also, as you might know, this series of webinar, this Mastering Mobility series, is part of the ongoing interest of Mobilize Your City on the paratransit sector across the world. And it also coincides with the launch in English of the Paratransit Toolkit. Just as a quick reminder, the Paratransit Toolkit is a comprehensive toolkit gathering 4 tools, one that presents the characteristics and gives an insight to understand a bit better this complex sector across the world. The second tool provides key questions that can be asked in the case of trying to conduct a diagnosis of the sector. The third tool presents some possible actions to introduce, to implement reforms and improve the paratransit sector. And then the fourth tool presents a series of case studies from across the world, trying to give a bit of a feedback and some key lessons that have been understood so far. This, as I was mentioning, this webinar today is part of a Mastering Mobility series that started last week and that will keep on next week also. Last week we presented some of the main characteristics of the sector, and also we tried to recall the vital importance of the paratransit sector in most cities across the world and the current challenges regarding the possibility to make it a more sustainable component of urban mobility systems. This week, we will try to delve a bit more into some examples of reforms that have been implemented in sub-Saharan Africa with the case studies of Lagos and Kumasi, trying to present, first of all, how it was important for the cities to develop a strategy to really understand the sector and then to identify the relevant actions. And next week, you will actually be asked to participate and be creative as we will propose interactive interactive exercise to also make you more familiar with the Paratransit Toolkit. Just a brief overview of the learning objectives for today. So we will try to analyze a bit better the actions that can be developed, the challenges that are being faced, and the lesson learned by those two cities, Lagos and Kumasi. Also, because we know that many of you are also in cities which are maybe facing currently similar challenges and also in position where you can be involved in such projects. So we will also try to explore the role of the city governments and all the stakeholders that involved in such projects. And eventually we will try to also really, as I was mentioning, emphasize the importance of this diagnosis phase, the type of resources and data that can be collected to really have a deep understanding of the paratransit sector, and then use it to identify the relevant actions to be implemented. To do so, this webinar will be divided in 4 different parts. The first part, which we are currently in, is just to give you a bit of an overview of the session. Then we will give the floor to our first speaker, which will present the case of Kumasi. Then we will move to Lagos to have another exploration of current measures implemented. And then we will have a Q&A session, a 20-minute Q&A session, where you will be free to ask the speakers about the experiences and feedback on the reforms implemented in the city. So please bear in mind that there is this time for exchange at the end of the session today. You will be also given 5 minutes at the end of each presentation to interact with the speaker, but maybe really for questions related to the context of the city, so we can have more expert questions at the end of the session. So to introduce you the speakers that we are lucky to have with us this morning, I would like to mention Mr. Stephen Okungoya, who's a bus operations management analyst at Lamata in Lagos, and Mr. Randy Wilson, who's the head of Department of Transportation in Kumasi in Ghana. And I will be myself moderating again this session this morning with you. And also to give you the floor now and within this session, I would like to ask you to comment in the chat by presenting yourself and indicating the city you are from. So we have a bit of an idea where this topic is of concern worldwide. And also, if you could tell us in a few words if you're aware of any actions or reforms involving the paratransit sector in your city, that will be really interesting for us to understand a bit better the type of interest you can have and also the different initiatives that are being implemented across the world. So feel free to comment in the chat right now and also all along the session to share this information. I'm not going to be too long because we're going to have a really interesting presentation. So I don't want to stay here. And I will immediately call our first speaker, Mr. Randy Wilson, who will talk to us about the case of Kumasi in Ghana. Randy, are you with us? Can you switch on your mic and your camera?
Yes, I have my microphone and my camera on. I don't know if you can hear me.
Perfect. Now we can hear you and we can see you. The floor is yours, Randy, for the next 20 minutes. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Celine and the team. And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of us on the platform now. I hope everything is going well with everybody. My name is Randolph Wilson. I'm the head of the Transport Department of the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly. Somebody will say, where is Kumasi? Kumasi is in Ghana, It is the second largest city in Ghana and the regional capital for Ashanti. It's a nodal city, a cultural city where we have the Otumfuo Asante, the monarch. It's an attractive center for business in Ghana, and so a lot of commercial activities happen over there. There are 9 municipalities that form the Greater Kumasi metropolitan area, and that is shown by the map in the middle. The map on the left is that of Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly, where I am the head of transport department. And the one on the far right is 16 assemblies that formed the expanded Kumasi Metropolitan area. And this is the area that we use for the preparation of the Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan. The idea being that mobility or transport issues transcends boundaries, and so therefore it's necessary for us to go a little bit wider when it comes to planning. Next slide, please. Yeah, so the nature of paratransit in Kumasi, and this is not different from any other in any of the African countries. You can see the pictures below. It tells the story. It is supposed to be legally organized by transport unions, but we have about a half or even more of people who don't join unions, but then are involved in the exercises. It's highly informal. You join today, you leave tomorrow, you go to another place, or you take a route and then they work anywhere. Private ownership of vehicles is what is actually the main base. So you buy your vehicle and then they start operating on the roads. And this has led to huge illegal operations on routes that are selected by these individuals. Next slide, please. So the urban mobility challenges that we have: poor integrated land use planning, inadequate facilities for public transport, our terminals and routes, and those things are inadequate. We don't have a good database that is supposed to help us in planning and management. People make use of small vehicles for public transport, and you saw that on the picture. Institutional framework not optimized for mobility. There's no transport authority to see to it that within the area that I showed you in the map, we have an authority that can help decide on what gets done. Standards for transport service provision is not fully developed. Funding is mostly for private people, and so they buy what they want to use. And enforcement activities on policies that have been made is a little not as strong as it's supposed to be. And there are situations we also have political interferences that also affect some of the things that we plan to do. Next, please. So we delve down to the SAMP process, where we have the AFD sponsoring it, and Ingerop was selected as a consultant. He had about 500 million as the cost. It took about 3 years for us to run through the preparation of the SAMP, and then it covered 16 assemblies, as I mentioned earlier. But the whole process was led by the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly, where I work as the head of transport, and then I coordinated the SAMP processes from this point, but then through the Regional Coordinating Council, because the exercise goes beyond just the radius of Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly. The Regional Coordinating Council was rather the coordinating point for all of us. And you can see pictures of some of the reports and documents that were done as part of the process. Next, please. So the Kumasi process, for those cities that want to go into the SAM process, the initial thing was that we expressed interest in wanting to be part of the Mobilize Your City and use that as basis to prepare the Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan. And so the mayor then formed the project team, and it was made up of different people from different backgrounds. And then we were the team. We developed the proposal, and then finally we were selected to be part of it, and the letter was sent to us. The mayor signed an agreement, and then the terms of reference for the selection of consultant was done. Now, when the consultant came in to ensure the process runs through, there was a steering committee which is made up of the politicians, the chief executives, and the coordinating directors. There was a technical committee that was made up of the technical officers from the various municipalities, and then a technical working group, which was just a core of the people that worked on daily basis, periodically with the consultants that was selected to have the project run with us. Next slide, please. So as part of the process, there were meetings for the technical working group, the technical committee meeting monthly, and then quarterly the approvals were run through by the politicians, the chief executives, and from the regional ministers, please. There were mobilized days that we all met the various stakeholders, and then whatever stage the consultant had reached, it was presented to all of us, and then people made input to shape the way things were going. We had data collection and other surveys. We went through scenario building and then the plan preparation process. And at each of these stages, there was a solid support from the various stakeholders. I had a call with somebody yesterday who said the gender aspect of the plan was very much written, and the reason being that we had a very good consultant from the university who actually ran us through. And so almost every stage of the process, we had people that really contributed and supported us, and that's what made us able to be able to prepare the sustainable urban mobility plan. At the end of every quarter, we went through the approval stages where the various chief executives approved the various stages that we had prepared. Next slide, please. So how to identify and mobilize the paratransit operators to join the SAM process. To be honest with you, when the whole thing came up, we have a system where the mayor meets transport operators every quarter in Kumasi. So before the start of the SAM process, in one of the engagements with the operators, the mayor made it known that there is this project that is coming up, and the various private transit operators would be needed to actually support the process. And so we picked the unions and we made the process known to them through official correspondence. We were visiting some of them at their meetings. There were times we were going to the transport terminals to carry out educations and picked their ideas as to how the whole process is supposed to go. There were even sessions that we made some of them lead the process so as to ensure that we are able to get it right, and not that some technical officers will just sit down and then put up some documents that probably wouldn't be able to wash when it comes to implementation. Mobilized days were days that were bringing every stakeholder together, and then we'll have presentations. There were workshops that were done, and then all these were supposed to get them involved at the various stages of the process. And at the end of the day, we had the buy-in of them, and we are hoping that when it comes to the point of implementation, we're going to have the support that is needed to actually make it work. Next slide, please. So data gathering of paratransit services for the diagnostic phase. As I mentioned earlier, we pick data on the unions. And when we say union in Ghana, for you to operate public transport, you must belong to a recognized union. And we have 24 of them in Kumasi. And although there are other drivers and vehicle owners who don't belong to the unions but are still operating, we identified these unions. We went to the various routes that they operate. We picked information on their members, the vehicles they are using, the challenges of their operation, the terminals and the location, and all other things around their operations. We picked that as basis for the preparation of the SAM. Now, the major challenges we had when it comes to the data collection and understanding of the various processes by the union and the executives, and the union executives and the drivers. yes, you will bring the people, you will explain, they will understand everything over there, but then immediately they leave. Some of them, you see them pulling their feet here and there. Some of the drivers, you would even go to the stations and they would say, we have not been informed of anything. There were people that were ready to provide information. There were others who were unwilling to also support with the data collection exercise. Even some of the people, immediately the team gets there and start collecting data, they start asking questions for the kind of benefits that will come to them. The expectations were so high, as if immediately you finish with data collection, maybe there are some freebies that were supposed to come to them. Now, the data that we have now, it is serving as an input for us in our planning and management processes, because currently we have the Kumasi Urban Mobility and Accessibility Project in place and a couple of other studies, and they all delve down into picking this data that was picked during the Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan preparation, and they are using that as basis to do further processes. Next, please. Now, somebody would ask, what are the efforts that are being made to transform the paratransit sector in Kumasi? From the national level, the National Transport Policy has said that we want to make Ghana the transportation hub for the sub-region, and then also aim at promoting mass transit. From the World Bank, Kumasi has the Kumasi Urban Mobility and Accessibility Project, which aims at the provision of a BRT, and it is in line with the mass transit system. The Sub-Saharan African Transport Policy is working with the university here on minibus professionalization, trying to professionalize the public paratransit operations so as to make it better, because that is the main mode of transport that we have in moving from one place to another. AFD supported the SAM preparation, and then also there is Digital Transport for Africa, which is looking at the route mapping, and it's a project that stalled a bit, but we are bringing it back, and we are saying to it that we are able to map all the routes in the city and then make it easy for us to plan and move along. For the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly, there's a project we call the Trans Info Map. It's a database on transport services for all the transport routes that we have. And the idea is to build a database exactly on the transport route, and then get to know the members, the drivers that are using, and every single thing about them, so that should there be anything to be done on any of these routes, at least you have an idea as to the vehicles, the members, and everything. And that's specifically for the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly. If you go to some of the unions, there's data gathering on their membership and operation, and you go there, some of them, even though the information might not be digitalized, but then you will see them that they have books that they write the names of the members and pick information about their members. And all these are geared towards improving the paratransit sector of the city. Next slide, please. So, efforts to reform the paratransit sector in Ghana. Here, in Kumasi, here we have multiple institutions and agencies involved. But up to this stage, there's no clear-cut leader, and then a common ground for us to speak to each other. And so it gets to a certain point, although we made use of that system in preparing the Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan, after the plan preparation, there seemed to be a lack of clear-cut implementation policy and programs as to how we are going to implement the whole sustainable urban mobility plan that has been prepared. There's limited capacity when it comes to the level of the cities and the leadership. Yes, when it comes to capacity, you have some of the municipals that do not have the transport department, and even the ones that do have, the resources that are needed to enable us plan and be able to execute actions are limited. There comes certain points in time that commitment at the institutional level for some of these things become questionable, but then we are hoping that we'll be able to get people ready to roll us through, and then also have upfront funds of money to be able to see to it that we are able to have funds good enough to enable us go through. Political will, yes, at one point in time, you will see the chief executives, the directors, and co supporting these activities. Then it gets to a certain point in time, you see that efforts just get limited because probably funds are not there or interest wanes. But we are hoping that as we go along, we'll be able to pick these things up and then run them through. Next slide, please. So the efforts, as I had mentioned earlier, we are working together with SSATP through the CUMAP initiative to introduce professionalism. There are workshops and capacity building programs that have been done. There's an effort to develop proper regulations and standards, and then the enforcement activities so that people will comply with whatever has been done. Data collection, we have done a certain level of it. We want to see to it that we get it digitalized so that the operational activities can easily be done, and also see to it that the various municipalities are able to raise revenue out of the activities. I've mentioned earlier that the university in Kumasi, KNUST Trek, is carrying out capacity building exercises for the transport department heads and other state institutions. There's also another aspect that they engage the transport operators in certain educational reforms, all meant to see to building their capacities. And then there are a lot of studies ongoing in Kumasi to ensure that at least we are able to get things to back the sustainable urban mobility plan that has been prepared and then roll it through fully to implementation. Next. Next, please. Well, I was asked, so how do we ensure that the decarbonization efforts that are being preached globally has something to do in Kumasi? And we have the University of Ghana, the KNUST, and then the Environmental Protection coming out with a project called the Clean Air Project. And this is aimed at ensuring that the various transport operators get to understand what it is to have our environment clean. And there's an effort to strengthen environmental protection, which is an agency of the government that sees to the decarbonization exercise. There's a net zero project, and that is also being led by the KNUSA Trek. Introduction of EVs by the Ministry of Energy. There's a couple of workshops and engagements that have been had, and we're hoping that these will sync very well with the people. And when we have the charging point in town, we'll be able to have these EVs in the city, and they work. There's also a huge effort at introducing better business models for reduction of number of vehicles used in providing transport services, because you go to some stations and you will see huge number of vehicles parked there, all waiting for their turn. And that does not make business sense, because then you have a huge number of vehicles and that prevents others from getting their turn around into the various communities. Meanwhile, there are other areas too that are not served. So the idea is when better business models are developed, then they will be able to see that if we put 20 vehicles here and take the rest 15 vehicles to operate at this other side, everybody will be able to get business, and then they will operate and have better resource. And these are all tailor-made programs that they are looking at starting with the unions and then build them locally and up onto the ladder to ensure that we all have better systems operating in the city. Next slide, please. I think this is my concluding. Yep. So I end here, and then I give it back to you, Soline. And if there are any questions, then I respond to them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Randy. I think that was very comprehensive and very interesting. I saw a hand raised. Sorry, if you give me a second. Otherwise, I would have also information. No, I think that That might have been a mistake. I would have one question, and of course, we will have also more time to discuss with you at the end of the webinar in the last 20 minutes. My question would be, Randy, to know to what extent the SUMP process was useful in terms of data collection, because you mentioned that that was the moment you managed to gather information on the paratransit sector. Would you have had on other opportunities to do so, or was it kind of a catalyst moment for you to introduce this data collection phase? Yeah, I just wanted for you maybe to emphasize the connection between the SUM process and the possibility to engage with the paratransit sector and its diagnosis.
Well, we've had a couple of other interventions in the city where we engage with the paratransit sector. And I also mentioned earlier that the mayor has made it a point every quarter he meets the paratransit sector. But most of the time, the mayor will meet the regional executives. And so it's mostly at the top level kind of thing. A few branch executives come in, but it's mostly a top level thing. But then when we finish, it is expected that the various executives would have taken the information down to the branches and even down to the various routes. But what we found out during the preparation of the SUMP is that most of the time the information does not get down to the various stations and get to the various drivers. And so we made it a point that should we have the opportunity to move to the next phase where implementation is supposed to be done, we will see to it that we develop a system that would ensure that the various paratransit operators at the local level are involved in the process. We do our best to reduce the top-down approach and make it more of a bottom-up. The expectation is that when we infuse change from the bottom, and we have this peer thing among the transport operators at the route level, at the station, then gradually it will eat into their members. And then when one branch is good enough, the other one will look at it and say, these people are doing ABC and it is good. Can we adopt? And as they go on adopting, it makes it a little easier, because change, when it is infused into the people and they adopt it themselves, it makes it a little better for us to see the results that we desire than going to them at the national level or even at the regional level and expecting that they go to the various stations and then effect these changes. So that is what we have seen. We learned a lot of lessons from the SUM process, and we are hoping that if we get the opportunity to implement, which I know from next year, we are going to pursue this vigorously and see to it that we are able to implement at least some of the basic things that were proposed in the SUMP, and then get the level of response that we want. I outlined a couple of other projects that we are having, and at each of these stages, we want to try and drum home the need for us to reform the paratransit sector and get everybody to be on board. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Randy. This is very precise, and it helps to understand how you can make use of these projects and planning process to really build a strategic, a broad strategy, on the paratransit sector. There is one question in the chat from Emmanuel Domergue. Maybe in 1 minute, I will ask you to give a brief answer, also because I will actually cut the question of Emmanuel into maybe there is one part of his question that we can tackle at the end of the session, because it deals with the operators and the workers themselves, and I think that will be interesting to maybe tackle with the case of Lagos as well. So I will just ask the question of Emmanuel on he said that it's very impressive the change in the mindset that has been taking place apparently in Kumasi, and he was wondering if how you managed to mobilize the public sector side and especially the decision makers to introduce such measures and to be on board regarding the paratransit reform. And
Wow.
all of that in 1 minute, Randy. But then we can, of course, elaborate more at the end of the session.
Well, I would say it's been a little bit of commitment from the part of a few of the officers that we had at the time. Myself, Madame Yvonne Nabo, who is now not here, transferred to another place, the planning officer, our roads engineer, Nanapoku Ajaman, physical planning, Benjamin Ejedi Mboating, and our finance officer, David Eje. We had a very solid team. Our PRO, Henrietta, we had a very solid team that were committed to seeing to it that it works. And so at every point in time, should any of us get the opportunity to speak to the mayor, we try to bring it in. And then we also got our colleagues at the other municipals to appreciate the importance of preparing such a document. And so they also started doing this at their level. We had our mayor and other chief executives speak to the regional minister, got the regional coordinating director, got the regional economic planning officer, Madam Beatrice, involved. And these really worked for us because at the end of the day, the region took it and they were spreading the message to all the political leadership. And gradually we were able to do this. We are hoping that we'll be able to, although a few of our people have left Kumasi KMA, we are hoping that we'll be able to, the new crop of people in there will be able to let us have the same team and even do a little better. But we are still learning. We are open to learning.
Yeah.
I worry the Mobilize Your City people a lot, the Engerop group, the consultants that came. I mean, you will wake up and there's a certain message that has been written to you. We send these things to the chief executive. We send it to them. We ask questions. We try to prepare briefs, a page or two, send it to them, and then we're able to let them see the importance of having to do this. Sorry, I took more than 1 minute.
No, but that's great. But we understand. I mean, I think repetition is one of the keywords to really advocate for the topic. Thank you very much, Randy. Again, I think we're gonna pass the floor to Stephen Ogunkoya, who will be speaking to us about Lagos, and we will meet you again at the end of the session, Randy, for the last 20 minutes Q&A. Stefan, are you with us? Yes, I can see you. And
Yes.
we can also hear you. Fantastic. So thank you very much, Stefan. I leave it up to you to present to us the case of Lagos within the next 20 minutes. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Solin. Good day, everyone. My name is Stephen Ogunkoya. I'm a bus operation management analyst, and I work with Lagos Metropolitan Area Transport Authority. Okay, so this morning I will be speaking on paratransit reform in Lagos, and we'll be looking at the Lagos Bus Industry Transition Program. Next, please. So in my outline, I will be walking you through from the Lagos transport profile down to the decarbonization of paratransit services in Lagos. Next slide, please. So this slide speaks to the Lagos transport profile. Lagos has a population of over 20 million people with a GDP of over $100 billion, and then Lagos is the fifth largest economy in Africa, and then the commercial nerve of Nigeria. So currently in Lagos, the modal share of public transport is about 2% regulated buses, 2% BRT, 2% motorcycle, 2% water, and then 1% rail. And then we have 72% of downfall who happens to be the paratransit sector. So what that tells us is that the public transport in Lagos is fragmented, and then Lagosians rely mostly on informal paratransit mode, which is usually downfall, the three-wheelers that we call keke here, and then the motorcycle that is being called Okadas. So in Lagos, a total of 22 million trips is being made daily, and then 90% of those trips are made by road, and then the average trip length by the public transport is about 9 kilometers. So next slide, please. Next slide, please, Solin. Okay, so So just to give give a background of the Lagos Transport Union. So currently in Lagos, we have two transport union called the National Union of Road Transport Workers and also the Road Transport Employee Association of Nigeria. So these two unions dominate the informal sector, and that is the 72% I mentioned earlier. Both unions represent the drivers and the bus owner, and they are largely divided by territories. That is, they have branches, chapel, and then units. So the union is usually managed by ESCOs at the state level and at the national level. So at the national level, they have presidents, and at the state level, they have state executive chairman with their ESCOs. So their operation in Lagos is haphazardly. And as you can see in the picture on your left is actually a park at Yanoba, one of the park in Lagos, while the other one shows how they operate on Lagos Road. Next slide, please. So to delve into the bus industry transition program. So in Lagos, there is currently an ongoing reform that is going on called the Bus Reform Initiative. And as part of that Bus Reform Initiative, we have the Bus Industry Transition Program that speaks directly to the paratransit. And then this project involved the planning, the structuring, and implementation of the Lagos bus industry. And also, one of the objectives is to design a new business model that will reform and incorporate the existing informal bus operator into 8 quality bus corridor. Currently, a consultant has been engaged, and the project will run for a period of 32 months from 2023. The project started last year, and it will end next year. The project is funded by AFD, and as part of the project phase is divided into 4 phases with 10 outputs. So the first output is to have a diagnosis of the existing transport sector, that is to know what is on ground, and then also define the orientation to the bus industry transition program. That's the policy framework, and also to carry out the legislation process with the informal operator and apply the options selected by them to implement the overall structure. So this program is being done by Lamata in conjunction with the State Ministry of Transport, and we've been engaging the two unions on the planning, structuring, and the reform and then operationalization of the quality bus corridor. Next slide, please. Okay, so this slide speaks to the study area, and like I said, it is an ongoing project. 8 quality bus corridor was shortlisted out of 13, and one of some of the key components of establishing the QBC is that it's targeted at the road and then the traffic, and that is the volume of traffic on those corridors. And also, this corridor was selected based on the fact that they connect to either the BRT lines or the Lagos mass transit rail, the rail lines. As you can see on the map, there is Ayobo. That Ayobo is from Ayobo to Yanopaja. It connects with the Oshogabule BRT line. We also have the Alapere to K2. It also connects to the Ikorodu to TBS line, one of our BRT corridor in Lagos. And also we have the Nordu to Yanoba, which also connects to the Lagos Blue line, the electric line in Lagos, and then the Lagos Badagry BRT line. So part of the plan is to replace the existing buses with new buses, and also look at a new operating model, have the capacity building for the informal sector, and then so that I can enhance the service delivery. Next slide, please. So just to show you what is going on, like I stated earlier, 8 corridor you can see in this slide. These are the 8 quality bus corridor that I've been choosing. You can see some of them. It ranges from 3.5 kilometer to about 12.4 kilometer, and then as part of the survey, we're able to identify the number of buses and vehicles on those corridor. We've been able to ascertain the number of drivers that will be affected, and also there was also traffic counts based on bus busiest session. So on each of those corridors, we are able to identify the busiest session of some of those corridors. So these slides are explain all of that. So next slide, please. So the diagnostic of the bus industry operation involve 14 type of survey, and then those 14 type of survey were based we categorized into 5 sessions. So the first session talks about the bus industry operation and business model. So these include stakeholder survey of driver, stakeholder survey of owners, stakeholder survey of ancillary services. Those are the mechanics, the petrol station, the food sellers that are around the garages. And also, we're able to identify the field identification of ancillary services. And also, registration of bus industry stakeholder, corridor registration survey of bus driver, corridor registration of survey of bus owners, corridor registration of bus unit. So, because what we realize is that in some instances, the bus drivers are not the bus owner. And also, in some cases, the union does not even own the buses. So we have 3 level of stakeholder, and this is currently ongoing. And also, we will be looking at the bus passenger demand. So an onboard origin destination passenger survey was carried out, passenger survey and quality survey, and then MIC survey to identify the attraction hubs and other suitable locations. And also bus line identification and characterization. So this talks about the bus identification survey, manually classified traffic count, bus line identification, boarding analysis count in buses, and also intermodal connections. And like I said earlier, those 8 bus quality corridor were chosen because we want them to integrate with our other lines, like the BRT lines and then the rail lines. So we've been able to identify all of this, and we know that they will connect and then integrate. And also, it's also serve as a means of accessibility for people that live in various communities so that they can join the BRT line and then the train line. Next, please. So now the bus industry transition policy framework, the vision and then the objective. So the vision is to ensure that all residents of Lagos benefit from access to reliable, safe, affordable bus services operated by well-trained professionals. So that is the vision. And we have 10 objectives, and these objectives include to deliver passenger-centered bus services that is inclusive and fully integrated with the broader Lagos public transport network through reliable intermodal connections, and also to restructure the existing bus industry in a manner that incorporates existing bus operator into the quality bus corridor. Because what we intend to do is we understand the fact that it's going to affect their livelihood, and we don't want to take away their livelihood. So that's why we plan to integrate them, and also to conduct the transition of the bus industry through respectful, direct, and transparent dialogue, and also to provide options for including of the existing bus operator into proposed structure through a transparent partnership between the Lagos State government, the transport union, and then apply a fair livelihood restoration criteria and compensation parameter. Next, please. And also, we are also looking at to provide new buses to enhance the reputation of bus services, safe and comfortable experience for Lagosians, and also to communicate clearly and effectively the benefit of the bus industry transition and promote the adoption of adjusted travel behavior to the community public, and also to monitor and enforce the agreed performance standards. Those are the KPIs, and compliance with the maintenance and operational requirements, and also to develop capacities of professionals and drivers within the industry. So the plan is also to upgrade parks and garages to enhance safety and create a well-organized, accessible transport hub. And lastly, to expand access to livelihood opportunity in the bus service and for the entire Lagos populace. So the core policy position of the Lagos government is that this program must be in line with the legal and regulatory compliance, licensing of vehicle, insurance compliance, and then to also have an integrated fare system for all modes, and then the safety of the vehicle. Next, please. So, like I said, in the course of the program, there has been a lot of stakeholders. So this slide shows on the bottom right of the slides, you see that we have the Honorable Commissioner for Transport, the Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of Transport, the Managing Director of Lamata, the Head of Bus Services Department, and some other stakeholders. Next, please. So, like I said earlier, in one of the stakeholders session that was held, you can see the Commissioner for Transport of Lagos and then the Managing Director of Lamata with the permanent secretary, the special advisor to the governor on transport, during the first sensitization meeting with the two unions. So, and the other session was during the sensitization program. Next, please. So, the roadmap and strategy for negotiation. So, the primary stakeholder of negotiation process include the Lagos State government and the transport union. And on the side of the Lagos State government, we have the Ministry of Transport, Lamata, and then a lead negotiator on behalf of the Lagos State government. So on the side of the two union, uh, they are going to form a committee, and they will appoint the chairperson of the negotiation committee. And what the negotiation committee will do is to speak to the owners. Driver on negotiation is to identify a mutual benefit solution between the Lagos State government and the existing bus operator to formalize and enhance the bus operation across the 8 corridors. And what this means is that the Lagos State government are planned to take all those security buses from them and then give them new buses. And in the process of that, those old buses will serve as part of. There are two options. Is either the old buses serve as an equity, or they scrap the buses and then they are being sold off by the transport operator themselves. Next, please. So continuation. So the key step involve meeting with the Lagos State chapter union representative, and then we plan to set up a designated negotiation committee for the stage of the negotiation, and then also seek high-level clearance to commence negotiation process, including the registration process of drivers and owners across the affected part of the state, and then also the registration process, which is currently ongoing, and this will be conducted at the park level and limited to relevant park that is being affected by the project. And the process will also serve as a tool to disseminate information to the rank and file member of the union during the negotiation process. And then there's going to be an initial offering with the negotiation committee. There's going to be a review with the negotiation committee, and then at the end of the day, we're going to conclude with the negotiation committee. Next, please. So far so good, because we are currently at the registration process. Some of the challenges we've faced so far is that there has been the communication gap between the branch chapel chairman and the downlines. So what we realize is that we have meeting with the chairman of the branches of the unit, but we realize that some of this information has not been cascaded to the downlines, especially the drivers and some of the union officials. So what we are now looking at is to use an inverse strategy, to use a bottom to top approach to talk to those affected drivers and bus owners directly, because we realize that the sensitization program that was done with the ESCOs does not yield the positive outcome that we intend to achieve. And also, there is also a slow progress in the registration process. So some of the drivers will tell you that you want me to leave my bus to come and register and all of that. In fact, we go as far as enticing them with some kind of incentive just to make sure that they register with us. And then also difficulties in getting data from the park. That has also been an issue, although the Ministry of Transport has actually waded in to also see that we get what we need. And also instability with the union ESCO. So what we also one of the challenges we also face is that because the union, they usually have change in ESCOs. So for instance, the two union, as we speak in Lagos State, just have a new administration, and what that means is that we have to start all the process again because there is no proper handing over. So now we've started engaging the new ESCO, and we hope that we'll be able to finish that on time. Next, please. So where we are, like I said, so confirm constitution and membership of two negotiation committees. So we are currently talking to the negotiation committee, and also we also had the quality bus corridor level sensitization meeting with branch chapel and the two union as of July 2024. That was some 3 months ago, and then we've also commenced the registration process of drivers, owner, and then vehicle, and then we also developed the timesheet for the bus industry negotiation, and the timesheet involves some of the things that the Lagos State government cannot do without. Next, please. So this slide speaks to, it shows that some of the registration, the ongoing registration. Next, please. So the next step now is to revise and analyze data from registration process to inform economic compensation, incentive mechanism, and then fleet scrapping program. And like I said earlier, there's going to be a fleet scrapping program. And some of the things we are telling them is that is either they use their existing old buses as an equity in the process of getting a new bus, or the buses are being sold off by the operator themselves. And also based upon the identifying individual, plan logistic and finalize training curriculum for training on the potential for a new operating environment. So there is an institute called the Lagos State Driver Institute that will bring on board to also ensure that there is training for the drivers and then other associated personnel on the operation. Next, please. So now, looking at the transformation, as you can see on the right, we have the rickety depot, and then on the left you have the planned depot, and also on the right, on the bottom left, you have the existing park, and on the right you have the proposed. This is one of the proposed terminal and interchange that the Lagos State government intend to construct as part of this program. Next, please. So I think that's all on the bus industry transition program. So just to quickly give a peep on what the Lagos State government is doing on the decarbonization of the paratransit program. So sometimes last year we have a study on the assessment and feasibility study of alternative fuel for public transport in Lagos State. And some of the key things we look at is to have the comparative analysis of biofuel options. Although in 2022 there was an e-mobility study that was done on electric vehicle. And also, we also plan to look at the technical and operational feasibility, looking at the bus ecosystem, technical and operational requirement like the biogas plant, technical and operational requirement of the transport system. We also intend to look at, we will be able to look at the financial and economic analysis, the legal and policy implication, the environmental and social analysis, and also we also plan to have the implementation roadmap. And as part of what we are also trying to do, currently 2 electric vehicles is being piloted in Lagos, and then the pilot has been completed. And the plan is to scale up to about 100 electric vehicle before the end of Q3 next year. And also the Lagos government is also planning to inject about 2,000 CNG buses into the system before the end of Q4 2025, and those buses will be delivered in phases. I think that's all for now. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stefan. That's a very impressive presentation. I think it gives an insight of what's happening actually at the moment in Lagos. Just a couple of moments, the sound was not great on your side, so just to say that it might be a few questions also that will relate to those specific information that you might have provided at that time. But I think because your slides were also very, very clear, we got most of the information. I will just have a quick question before we share the flow with the participants present this morning. I wanted to ask you, because it's very impressive what you presented, right? In terms of, first of all, in terms of numbers, because it's Lagos, so it's always impressive, but also in terms of ambition and strategy deployed. I wanted to ask you, within Lamata, how many people are taking care of this project, and maybe if you could just give an impression of the type of profiles you have and skills within your team to pilot this project.
Okay, thank you very much. So the project is the Lamata project, and then the project is being championed by the corporate and investment planning department in Lamata. Even though it is domiciled in the bus services department. So the head of bus services in Lamata is the one championing, is one sitting on the project.
Mm.
So, and then the project is being done in conjunction with the Ministry of Transport, because there is nothing you can do without the State Ministry of Transport.
And how many people are you within Lamata involved in this project?
Okay, so the entire bus service department is involved, and that department has the staff personnel of over 50,
Okay.
50, and then also we have the like I said, we have the planning unit of the corporate and investment and planning department with about 5 to 6 personnel. Additionally, we also have the road and infrastructure department that will take care of the junction improvement, the upgrade of road, junction improvement, and then signals and all of that. So if you look at it, we are talking about over 70 personnel on the project from Lamata alone.
Yeah, no, that's very important, because I think it's because of the ambition, we also see the importance to have the dedicated staff and teams involved, and also the coordination between the different departments, even within Lamata, of course, and also, as you mentioned as well, with the ministry. Thank you very much. I think we have already questions in the chat. We can move maybe to the general question on both presentation, on both case studies of Lagos and Kumasi. So please, to the participants, if you would like to ask anything to our speaker, you can just either raise your hand and then I will call your name and you can switch on your camera and unmute yourself to ask your question, or otherwise feel free to just post your question in the chat box. I think we already have one question for Mohammed in the chat on Lagos, and Mohammed is asking who regulated the paratransit fare in Lagos.
Oh, okay. So currently the paratransit are being licensed by the Ministry of Transport. So, Lamata, as the Regulatory Transport Authority, is saddled with the responsibility of regulating public transport in Lagos State. So, as part of the effort to bring them on board is what led to this project.
Yeah.
So, currently they have been licensed by the Ministry of Transport, but Lamata is planning to bring them on board for regulation, and also to provide a better enabling operation environment for them.
Okay, thank you. And we have a few more questions on the strategies to also involve the operators within reforms on the paratransit sector. Randy, I will ask you maybe to switch on your camera and your microphone as well, because those questions I think apply both for Lagos and Kumasi. So we have several questions on that topic. The first one, is in a more global way, what kind of arguments did you put forward to engage with the paratransit service providers? And I think this can apply to both cities. And we even have a more precise question still on this topic that is being raised by Mohammed, who is asking more specifically if any of you could also give insights, maybe after the first question, on the type of contract that are being managed with operators, meaning are they service-based or route-based? And more generally speaking, the type of incentives that are being put forward to also embark operators within the process. So I'm not sure, maybe we can, I think maybe the answers will probably differ from one city to another. So Stefan, do you want to start maybe, as you were already touching on this?
Okay. So for Lagos, so one of the arguments we put forward is because currently the two unions currently are operating on one of our BRT lines. So when the Oshodi-Abule-Egba BRT project came on board in 2020, so what the Lagos government did was to put them together to form a company called Amalgamated Megacity, and then they were being given buses to operate. So because there have been previous engagement, so it was very easy for the state government through Lamata to also engage them, to tell them that, look, for the fact that you've been on ground, so this is what we intend to do now. But just that this is at paratransit level, not at the BRT stage. And then for the type of service being being run in Lagos. It is route based, so operators are being franchised on route based. So that is what is being done and in Lagos. And I think I can't get the last question. Maybe you can help me with that.
Yeah, that was more generally on the type of incentives, but I think that's what you mentioned, and the type of contracts, if it's route based or service based. So that was
No,
basically the.
it is in Lagos. It is route based.
And thank you, Stephen. Maybe Randy, if you could complement this answer.
Yes, we also have the route-based contracts, but you see the situation in our cases, these routes were operated on by the traders unions before the introduction of the route licensing. And so it was more of we regularizing what was existing. And then we did a little bit of protection for anybody that has permits to operate a particular route. Should somebody also want to be there, we just prevent the person, ensuring that only the operator or operators that have been given the route permit to operate is the one that does it. But in the midst of all this, we still have the illegal people who wouldn't belong to the union, but would just be loading around, and it still be you making use of the same routes. And that thrives because enforcement activities has not been as strict as had been planned. And so it makes it a little easy. The incentives that we give them, I'm just wondering if we gave them any incentive. The only thing is that probably we painted a picture of a better tomorrow for their operations. And that was what was good for them to actually join us in working towards preparing the document and joining us in preparing the necessary data collection exercises and supplying the needed information, because we know that tomorrow, if you're able to do things a little better, it is their operational activities that will benefit at the end of the day.
Yeah, thank you, Randy. And maybe from your answer, I would also make the connection with another question that has been asked on the incumbent operators, meaning maybe there are also operators outside of the unions that you've been identifying. I think the question was raised mostly regarding Lagos, but it might be the case as well in Kumasi. So what kind of strategy can also be implemented for the operators, either operating illegally or outside of the targeted unions?
Well, what we have tried doing over the past, and we hope to pick it up vigorously next year, is the issuance of stickers to be fixed in front of the vehicles. Now, in our legal document, LI21, the legislative instrument that guides public transport, LI2180 states that if you want to operate public transport, you must belong to a union, you must indicate your route. And then our route indication, we've done it a sticker. And so the vehicle must have that sticker to be able to operate within the area. Now, in the time past, we're doing it on assembly basis. Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly will be doing it, Joso and the rest, everybody will be doing it on its own. But now we have put everything together to be done at the greater Kumasi level. And that is what even informed us in taking the sample that wide, so that at least vehicles within a certain radius of the city center are all going to be part of the exercise. And so therefore, if within that radius, everybody complies, then the volume of illegality becomes reduced. And that's what we want to go ahead and do. The only unfortunate thing is that most of the time we want the operators to pay for the stickers. And so if a few pay and the others don't, and enforcement activities does not prevent the others from operating, then everybody else says that I did it last year, nothing was done to the other people. And so this year I'm not going to do it. And then it gets the recalcitrant ones increasing. But we're hoping that we get into next year, after our election this year, we'll be able to do these things a little more vigorously and better.
Thank you very much, Randy. I see, Stefan, the light is back on your side. Would you be able to, I'm not sure if you heard the question, but would you be able to comment on it? Meaning how is it possible for you to also include other unions than the two that you mentioned initially? We cannot hear you.
So, sorry, like I said earlier, in Lagos, those are the two major transport unions, the NURTW and then the retail. So every other union are subsets of those two unions, and anything you do with them will eventually be cascaded to whatever union you have. So and part of what the Lagos State Government Ulamata is doing is to ensure that they have the right infrastructure, like providing a bus terminal for them to operate, unlike what they have, like the garages, like them operating on the roadside, and also to also provide bus depot where they can effectively stable their buses, and also construction of roads, and then junction improvement that gives priority to public transport. So those are some of the things that are embedded in this project. And then, so I think basically that's majorly what the state government is doing as far as Lagos State is concerned.
Yeah, it's very interesting what you mentioned with the approach with the infrastructure as well as a way to identify the operators. And still in Lagos, we have another question on the vehicle scrapping program that you presented to us. Could you provide us with more information on the mechanism that you presented with the vehicle scrapping and acquiring of new vehicles, and also what happens with the vehicles that are being scrapped?
Okay, so like I said earlier, currently there's a registration process going on, and that what process does is to identify the drivers and the vehicle owner. And like I said earlier, in some cases the drivers are not the vehicle owner. So you must be able to know the driver and then also know the vehicle, and also know the number of vehicle on a particular corridor. And that is what we inform the number of buses that will be procured by the state government. And what the state government intends to do is to give them those buses, because for Lamata has a specification for all category of buses, be it HOV, be it mini, be it midi. So these buses will be given to them, and then the existing buses will be used in some cases maybe as equity. So there's going to be a bus repayment plan for them, and that's why I think I forgot to mention that as part of this program, there's going to be an OBDM, and the OBDM is operation design and business model. And what that would do is to look at the financial model, and then the most appropriate bus operating financial model for Lagos. So that will be used to determine the payback period and all of that. After which these buses will become these buses will be owned directly by this operator or the union, as the case may be. So basically, I think that's what the scrapping. So the state government will take the Ukati buses and then scrap them, but the operator will not have new buses.
And sorry, just to make sure that I understood correctly, so it means that the state is directly procuring the vehicles, so the operators will repay back the state.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So not the banks directly.
Sorry.
Not financial institutions.
And so that's methodology will be worked out within the states, but then the vehicle will be coming from the states.
Okay. Oh, that's very interesting. And maybe so still on the operators and the professionalization of the operators. One questions on the type of service quality that it is expected. Do you already have levels of service quality that have been identified? I guess you mentioned, but in Kumasi and in Lagos, that some trainings are also being built. Could you elaborate maybe a bit more on that also in terms of how are those trainings being framed, who's going to be implementing them, and what would be maybe the scheme to implement the training with specific cohorts of operators? Is it like a big bang approach with many drivers and operators initially, or is it incremental? I would be very interesting to hear a bit more about this aspect.
Okay. So there's going to be a general training. So these are informal bus operator, and then we are trying to absorb them into the regulated transport scheme. And currently here in Lagos, we have 3 lines. We have the LMRT. So operators currently under the Lamata regulated scheme are familiar with some of these things. So bringing informal operator on board, you need to let them understand that service reliability is the soul of public transport. And in some cases, there might be, in fact, there will be things like the schedule and all of that. And also, the state also has its own key performance indicator that we look out for. Say, for instance, on a particular route, you need to your journey time, your passenger waiting time, and all of those things will be looked into. And then these are some of the things that will be embedded in the service level agreement. And on the training side, the driver also the driver will be trained to meet the Lamata standard, like how to relate with passenger, how to drive properly, because a lot of them will tell you that they've been driving for 30 years and all of that. And at the end of the day, when you see them, you realize that some of them are just vehicle movers. So these are some of the things that will be incorporated as part of this project. And like I mentioned earlier, there is an agency here in Lagos, the Lagos State Driver Institute, that Lamata and then the Ministry of Transport is going to work hand in hand with to ensure that all of these things have been taken care of. And also for some of the operatives, like maybe like the ground staff that will not be driving, maybe like the station manager and some other personnel that will be part of they will also be trained on customer service training and other training as it relates to operations, maintenance, and service quality. But then there's going to be a service level agreement that will state some of these key performance indicators, like non-tolerance to fatal accident. Your minor accident must not be more than so percentage. The passenger waiting time must not be more than all of this. And these are some of the things that will eventually form the service quality for the bus operation.
Okay, that's very comprehensive. Thank you very much, Steve. Maybe Randy, if you would like to also give feedback from what you've been implementing in Kumasi. I'm thinking also in terms of training. You mentioned some programs being currently developed. If I'm not mistaken, also in the context of SSATP and in partnership with the local university.
Yeah. So the idea is that over the years, we talk about some of these things, but at the end of the day, nothing much is seen. And so what we put up is to ensure that we don't just do it with the regional executives, national executives, but we come down to the people. And then also there are some of them that do not really see the business side of what they are doing, how they can just get it improved to. Hello?
Yeah, we hear you very well.
Well, there's something happening, I don't know. But let me continue speaking. There's something on my machine, I don't know. So the idea is, instead of just holding it up at the top, we want to go down and see to it that we are able to build the capacities needed to ensure success. And so that is why we are contacting almost every organization that we can have access to, and then to see to it that we are able to see the results that is supposed to be supposed to come out of us. And it's not been bad. There are other engagements that are planned. There's this City Lab project from the Columbia University. There's the SSATP, the Kumasi Urban Mobility and Accessibility, the KNESC Net Zero project, the trek training and paratransit professionalization. There is something from the BRRI, Bureau of Integrated Rural, what's the name? They were part of the consultants that worked on the SAM project. So we are trying to pick all these agencies and programs and then put all of them together and see to it that we are able to run them through to ensure we have success. There's even a driver training program that is coming from another university, also in Kumasi under the TransSafe project. So there are lots of them, but then how we draw a synergy amongst all these and see to it that at least the little that is coming from all these other ends are properly packaged and delivered to the operators. Our basic thing, and that we see to be the trump card, is to ensure that we don't only train those at the top, but maybe we pick a few people down the ladder and then make them ambassadors from these unions. Because most of the time, the union executives are a little elderly and older. And so you pick young guys from these unions and then you make them ambassadors, and then you set up the living lab or something of that sort. And as we go along, if there's anything new that comes up, then they get to hear it. For instance, like this webinar, if we had had this established, I would have seen to it that all the members of this group that I'm talking about would have participated in there. They would have heard examples from other places and then be able to learn out of this. As we are doing it now, it's blasting loud in my office. About 15 or so people are listening. From physical planning, people are there listening. The KMA, there are other municipals in Greater Kumasi where the transport focal persons are listening. But the only thing is that these are officers that are listening. Yeah. But if we are to properly do it, we could have had the transport operators also in there and listening to it. We want to take advantage of all these opportunities to ensure that the operators themselves appreciate the need for them to professionalize and change how they do things. And we are hoping that it will give us the results.
Thank you very much, Randy. And also the good thing is the session is recorded, so you feel free to share it with other stakeholders at another time if you want to. No, thank you very much. I think it sums up very well the different issues and challenges regarding training and professionalization, not just of the operators, but also, as mentioned Stephen before, of the different type of workers that are involved in the paratransit sector. Maybe as a last question, because we're going to have afterwards to wrap up this session for today, I just wanted to ask you maybe still, Randy in Kumasi, a question related to the SUMP from Timothy that said you presented the nice idea of inviting paratransit associations to lead SUMP development sessions. Can you provide an example of an idea that contributed for the SUMP?
Okay, so Chairman Eric Ajay, he's one of the chairman for the unions, and at a point in time we grouped them and we made him the lead person for their group, and he was just asked to lead his people to identify how best they themselves can evolve their activities to make it better. Okay, and the ideas they expressed, very, very wonderful. Even the other group led by Chairman Isaac of blessed memory, he passed on. He also led and the enforcement. It is one of the very forceful guys that we had amongst the unions, and his team came up with something that if the police MTTD were supposed to implement, probably would have had a very solid enforcement going on. And so we look at personalities, and then we look at their strengths, and we looked at what they can lead in letting us do. And so when groups were formed, well, I would say at some point in time, we manipulated to get some people into certain groups so as to get a kind of output that we want. And interestingly, they finish and someone else presents for the group and you see the results that come out of this. Maybe I would have to start, if I knew some of these things were going to come up, maybe we would have done proper recordings of some of the sessions, and we could have probably shared with Mobilize Your City, and you could have made them available to other cities, and they could also learn from it. But hey, we have the opportunity to do it, go to implementation next year. So I'm hoping that is when we'll be able to do that very well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Renee. I think it's a good point that you're making, that those processes are very complex and very, very important. Keeping a trace of it and keeping track of the discussion is also a very important aspect not to neglect. Maybe just as a conclusion, Stefan, in 1 or 2 sentences on this topic of engaging with paratransit operators, would you have just maybe because we know it's a challenge in most cities, and we have a lot of cities actually represented with us this morning. Maybe one key takeaway from the experience in Lagos on how to engage and negotiate with the unions.
Okay, so I think one of the lessons learned is that speaking with the executive alone will not really go far. So it should be like a top bottom and then bottom to top approach, so that everybody can be carried along. Because one of the things we realized is that after meeting with them for like 3 to 4 months, and then at the point of registration, we had to start all over, start selling those drivers and some of those operatives, some of these things. So I think the key thing is to ensure that everybody is being carried along, so that the aim and the objective can be communicated effectively. Yeah, I think that's key.
Thank you very much. That's very, very relevant, very precious. Thank you very much, Stefan. Thank you very much, Randy, for being with us this morning and sharing with us this very interesting feedback from Kumasi and from Lagos. It's gonna be time to say farewell. And just before that, I just wanted to share a few information with our participants this morning, just to let you know that it's also time for feedback on your side. We would really appreciate if you could give us some insights on how valuable was the session for you, and what could be improved, because that's also how we try to improve the sessions. So you can access the form directly with the QR code on the screen, or with the link that is being posted in the chat box. So yeah, thank you very much in advance for completing the form. Also, I wanted to let you know that if you have interest in all these topics, and more generally the activities that were being led by Mobilize Your City, do not hesitate to register to Mobilize Your City newsletter. You will have plenty to deal with if you're interested in urban mobility systems worldwide. And if you missed any past session, you can find the recordings and the slides on Mobilize Your City website, and also very resourceful materials on the dedicated pages on the Resource Hub on Mobilize Your City website. Thank you all very much. I will meet you again next week, next Thursday, same place, same time. This webinar next week will be dedicated to an interactive exercise based on the Paratransit Toolkit, where we'll give you all the possibility to shape consistent and interesting reform on the paratransit sector. So thank you again for participating. Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Stefan. Thank you, everyone. And have a great Thursday. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye, 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 bye. See you next week.
See you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye. See you next week.